Yes, everyone, you know what time it is. It's your boy Dave, Philip, and Dermatron here, THFC Till I Die Takeover. It's going to be a good one, I imagine. I think it's going to be probably a funny one. I bet we're going to be trying to be serious as well at the same time, have some good conversation. But these are our good friends. These are our guys that we always have good chats with. And how we doing, Mr. Philip Brady?
I am doing great, absolutely. First day of the transfer window. I'm looking forward to the fixtures tomorrow to see who we get first. Who's our first victim under Ange?
He's the first victim indeed. Mr. Dermatron, how are we?
I'm doing grand. Look, first day of the transfer window, as Philip said, and I suppose we won't get any news till 5 to midnight on transfer deadline day. So we just have to wait and see. But look, fixtures out tomorrow. Tottenham are back. I can't wait. I'm already buzzing for the new season, so bring it on.
And Dave, I bet you're getting ready for that early schedule release tomorrow. How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, so first of all, make sure you tune in, 8:45, going live, bringing you a live reaction to the fixture list that are out tomorrow. So we'll find out exactly who Tottenham's first victim is, like Philip likes to say. But also, Jack, I'll be honest, I'm a bit bored. You know, I'm sitting there every day getting excited. Okay, what defenders are coming in? And then I'm there looking at my watch every hour, and I'm like, still no link, still no link, still no link. So, you know, just get David Ray over the line and then go and get me centre-backs, and then I can get excited.
Well, everybody, let's get excited with this bit of news that we're going to start off with here. And it's hot news that's come out the press here. And it's probably some type of news that I feel like is either making people celebrate because he is a very divisive one, or it's making people very, very scared because he's one of their favorite players, kind of like probably me, I'm maybe alluding to myself here. Højbjerg could be out the door, everybody. This has come from Tom Barclay, I believe, of The Sun. So I'm not sure how much you can really believe into it, but at least we're going to have some fun with it. Might as well. Højbjerg could be out the door this summer, or at least he's not exactly maybe in Spurs' plans potentially, considering he has 2 years left on his contract. Maybe we'll start with Mr. Dermatron. What are your thoughts on the likes of Højbjerg being out the door, potentially at least? And what would be your asking price if you were, in charge of it?
I wouldn't sell him. I'd be really disappointed if we sold Højbjerg. I really like him as a player. I think he had that brilliant combination with Bentacle before Benny got injured. So he is a good player for us. He's a motivator. You see him in the tunnel before games, revving up the place. You see him during the games, he's revving up the fans. And I always call him his our Graham Roberts in a way. And I'd be really sad if he goes. Asking price, if he is going to be sold, 40 million, 45 million, I think he'll go for. We only paid 50 million, you said, Jack, as well. So look, we'll double our money for him, but I don't want to sell him. So,
that's a good
it's
starting
the Sun.
price.
It's the Sun. What do you expect from the Sun? The only good thing about the Sun is page 3. That's about it. So I wouldn't take much.
That's gone now, Dermot. Done away with that.
Oh, well, never mind.
Dermot's playing hardball on the price, Philip.
Yeah, if we were to sell him, I think that's a little bit on the high side, really. I don't think we get that much for him, but I don't want to get anything for him. I don't really want him to go, and I think the source of the rumor from the Sun has to be taken with it. Like the Sun is good for wrapping your fish and chips up, and that's about it. I'd say their success rate on transfer rumors like that is probably about 1%. So no, I can't see us selling Højbjerg. He's too valuable for even if he doesn't start every game, to have him there as a squad player, as a leader in the team. As Dermot said, he's a Graham Roberts type character. He gets stuck in. And he's a motivator, so I keep him. And hopefully that rumor is like most of the Suns, absolutes. Not
Dave.
good. Not good. I'll keep it clean there. Not good.
So he's not even entertaining it by the looks of it, Philip Brady, as at least with the case of Højbjerg, he would just say, just throw that paper away. Might as well use it for, burger and chips, efficient chips, Dave.
Exactly.
Yeah. Look, me, I don't get the rumors at all, to be honest with you, Jack. Look, I can understand him to a certain degree. Is he mobile enough to play in Ange Postecoglou's midfield? I think there'd be questions on that. However, look, for me, when I look at someone like Højbjerg, I think he embodies a leader. And I also think that there's so many more players around the club that have to be got out first, that are on absolute colossal wages who, like, for instance, Sanchez, 65k a week for 20 games a season. There's a lot more players that have actually cost this club on the football pitch that need to go way beyond someone like Højbjerg. And I know people are going to make the argument, but he's one of the most sellable assets we have. Okay, fine, but we don't want to be a club where you're selling some of your best players. You know, you want to keep some of your best players around so you can progress and get rid of the shit and get in good players that match what we've already got here. And that's what we need to do. So for me, selling Højbjerg makes no sense whatsoever. I think a lot of people misunderstand why Højbjerg was brought in here in the first place. He was brought in here to clean up behind the likes of Dele Alli, Lo Celso, and Ndombele, because not one of them wanted to do any defensive work between them. And Højbjerg has brought some steel to that midfield over the last few years. I get where people say on the ball he can be a bit foul wanting at times or a bit frustrating. I get it. But, you know, you buy Højbjerg to provide that steel to go and break up play. And often midfields is about partnership. You have one that breaks up play, who wins it and gives it to a guy who can play. And when you haven't had a Bentancur in beside Højbjerg, or a guy that's better on the ball, that's more calmer on the ball, you don't see the best of Pierre-Emile Højbjerg demonstrated by Harry Winks in beside him or Ollie Skip in beside him. Yeah. You know, and then his role becomes less effective when you've got players beside him that are weaker than him, that can't, you know, take up the slack in the passing department. So for me, you know, I keep Højbjerg around as a ball playing or as a ball winning midfielder and getting back to exactly what he was good at under Jose Mourinho, where many people are lauding him. And underneath Ange Postecoglou, with the way he's going to play, he's going to want a holding midfielder to sit in there, protect that back line, and just break up play. And Højbjerg will become effective in that system for me. And, you know, look, if you want a price, I want what Madrid were willing to pay for him last year. However, that's never going to happen anymore because they've got Bellingham, they've got Tchouameni, they've got Camavinga, Modric is signing on. So they've got a whole array of midfield options. So I think that move is off the card for Højbjerg, but that's what I would take for him. You know, you put the right pieces in around him and you're going to see the very best Højbjerg again. You're talking about a player that's missed 10 or fewer games over the last 3 to 4 years since he's been here. Name me another Spurs player where that's happened, bar Kane or Son.
I mean, the guy is just, that's his greatest asset, is sort of his fitness record, is his availability. The fact he's the most available man on the planet. He will always be there, you know, rain or shine. He's not hurt. He's always able to put in 90 minutes. And he's probably even, you know, more tired than maybe anybody really in the whole squad, but he's still fit. He's still available. He still pulls himself together. If I were to even entertain the logic of selling Højbjerg, I'd say you got to go brutal then and just use the same logic then on a guy like an Ollie Skip and just say this guy has to go as well, because everybody seems to think the reason that Højbjerg needs to go is because he won't adapt to Ange's system. Even before I get into the fact that, you know, I think Højbjerg's actually adapted to almost all the systems that we've had of different managers, I do feel like then you have to say the same thing about a certain Ollie Skip. Højbjerg, at the end of the day, whether you hate him, love him, he is better on the ball than Ollie Skip. I think we've seen that plenty of times this season. The assists alone would show that. The fact that, I mean, I'm using, again, Sean's words here, but I think it's accurate. When Skip gets into the final third, he looks like he has altitude sickness when he gets up there, whereas Højbjerg does have a bit of composure, has that, you know, little pass, has that ability to strike one if he needs to. He has a decent finish on him from time to time. And you can tell, even when he misses some of those shots, he actually is disappointed with himself, because you can tell he rates his ability, I think, when he gets into those sort of final third kind of moments. And then on top of that, like I was going to get into, I feel like Højbjerg has shown throughout the days of Jose Mourinho what he was brought in originally to do. He did with flying colors. He won the ball back and then was able to get it off to players like Ndombele, able to get it off to players like Harry Kane, and just do the dirty work in an exceptional way that guys like Moussa Sissoko, Harry Winks, other players couldn't exactly do, or even really didn't want to do, to be honest. Then he brings on Nuno. To be fair, during those days, I think everybody was playing terrible, kind of honestly, bar Højbjerg, because Højbjerg was playing next to the likes of a Harry Winks. I mean, who is expecting him at all to really do well during that time period? And he also was playing next to Dele Alli and players like that. It just wasn't, I think, ever going to be any sort of recipe for success. But I remember even Højbjerg's interview during those bad days under Nuno. He was saying, I'll play for the tea lady, whoever it is. He had all the right things to say. And I think then when he came under Antonio Conte, he was an absolute beast for us for the end of the season. And actually, I think even Dave and I said towards the end of last season, Højbjerg was actually basically one of the better players actually in the team, and was actually better than Bentancur towards the end of last season, was actually contributing more than Bentancur was in the final third, kind of in sort of the build-up play, etc. Even though Bentancur is exactly like what Dave was saying, what Højbjerg needs. He needs players like that in order to be his best self. I think a lot of people have a bit of sort of it's a bit of recency bias, or it's also, even if you were to entertain the logic of selling Højbjerg, I think you got to apply that same energy to a guy like Ollie Skip then, because when we even bought Højbjerg originally, this is my last point, like Højbjerg was, one of the best ball winners in the Premier League at Southampton. He was averaging, I think, like some of the most tackles, interceptions, some of the most pressures, was just, the best sort of water carrier really in the Premier League kind of at the time, at just doing the basic hard work, kind of, hard-nosed type of midfield work. And I think he was doing that at 24, 25 years old. Like, Skip doesn't have much longer until that's, that sort of age too. So you have to think about it. Like, will he be at Højbjerg Southampton level by 24, 25? I'm not even sure if he will.
A couple of things to say there. One is, to back up the point that it's about partnerships. I remember before we ended up sort of isolating Winks altogether, I remember we dropped Højbjerg and put in Bentancur beside Winks, and it was no better. Bentancur didn't look like the player. And this is what I'm saying. It's about the strength in the middle in a partnership. One person on their own is never going to be able to run that midfield. You need the right partners in beside you. Second of all, you've got to look at this as at what's best for Tottenham right now. You've got to look at who's Premier League level. Bentancur, who's not back till October, probably November, and it could be December, January before you see the best of him after such a long injury layoff. You've got Bissouma, who, look, we all expect him to be so much better than what he was next year, and plus, he's had a hard run with injuries and all that sort of stuff as well. So you expect more out of him next year. Papa Matasar would be the next one after that. He's got a high ceiling, and for me, one that I think Postecoglou will get the best out of. He'll use his mobility, his versatility, the way he can get stuck in, but he's also good, calm and collective on the ball, and has good passing range and wants to affect the game from the middle. And then you've got Ollie Skip, who for me, there's no point of persisting with him this year. Put him out on loan to a lower league Premier League team. Let him play week in, week out there. Make sure that you get that guarantee. And you'll know then if he's Premier League standard or not, because right now on the ball, he is nowhere near Premier League standard. Højbjerg is better on the ball than Ollie Skip, but they both go and break up play, and Højbjerg's better at breaking up play as well. But also last year, we'll say we're starting to enter some dangerous conversations here at Tottenham. You hear more conversations about, should we cash in on Harry Kane? Should we cash in on Romero? Is he as good as we think he is? Is Son getting too old? Should we cash in on him? We're entertaining more conversations about cashing in and selling our best players than players that we know need to go and have needed to go for quite some time. And if we keep this up, we will be left in a position where our best players are gone and you are left with shit players. And I think the reason why people don't entertain the conversation on the crap players anymore is because either they all know they have to go, or else they secretly like them because it reminds them of the Poch era. But it's either one. But let's start having the real conversations on the Dyer and the Sanchez. And I know people are going to say, but we've had them for years. I don't care. I'll keep having them until the day they're out my club. Again. And I want them out my club before Højbjerg, Kane, Son, and bloody Romero. Simple as.
People seem to forget Højbjerg is one hell of a passer of the ball. He can, look how many goals did he set up for Harry Kane last season with through balls or long passes? 60, 50, 60-yard passes. I haven't seen passes like that since Glenn Hoddle. And Højbjerg can do that. Højbjerg has got the package. He's got the determination. He motivates players. He can put his foot into it. He can ping a pass.
Did Ellie send you that, Dermo?
Huh?
Ellie send you that?
No, it's why I agree with Eddie on that. Højbjerg, for me, I've always loved Højbjerg at Tottenham. He's my favourite player out of the whole squad. He really is. I've always liked Højbjerg. If we sell him, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. We rarely are. And Tottenham have done that year after year after year. We always get to a level, and then some way we get a gun and we shoot ourselves in the foot. And then we end up back to where we were. We always take another 3 or 4 spaces back. Sell the deadwood, sell the crap players, keep players like Højbjerg, Benny, Romero, and build a team around them. Then we can have a team to be proud of. We can't keep looking back at the Poch era. We keep looking back, we're going to get a creak in our neck. Looking back's no good. Look forward. Let's build a team around these players. Get rid of the shit players. And if Harry Winks comes back to this club, I would personally go over, pick up his boots and throw them as far as I can throw them. I don't want him at my club. I don't want Dyer. I want Sanchez, with all of them gone, because I am pissed off to the back teeth of how these players play for Tottenham. They don't care about us. I don't care about them.
For me, he is your typical holding midfielder, breaks up play, gives the ball to the ball players around them. That's traditionally what that role has been. And, you know, even if I take your point, Jack, that Basuma does start, Ange Postecoglou uses all 5 subs. You know, he uses them from about 60, 65 minutes onwards, and that's how his teams stay playing relentlessly for the 90 minutes. So, you know, even like Richarlison up front, there's going to be plenty of minutes for him coming off the bench and stuff like that. So there'll be plenty for someone like Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. So you bring him on for 30 minutes, full of energy, let him run around, smash people like a blue-ass fly and break up play. There's a role here for someone like Højbjerg at this club. And right now, we need to bring in a goalkeeper, we need to bring in centre-backs and potentially a full-back on either side, if needed, before you even look at that midfield. So why would you make what? Like, this is the thing. We got to stop creating problems and adding to our list every single bloody window. And at some stage, you just got to fix the problem issues, get that going, and then look at it beyond in the next window. Go, right, okay, backline, goalkeeper sorted. Now let's go to the midfield. Now let's go into the forward area. But this whole crack of, let's sell off the midfield. Let's sell off one of our strikers, this, that, and the other, and create more and more problems to do. And then we're all going to be sitting here at the end of the transfer window moaning because the club haven't been able to do everything they want to do. Well, of course they're not going to. If we're going to be selling players and causing ourselves more issues, you're never, ever going to get everything done. So let's just calm it down, cool it down a little, and let's actually deal with the problem areas first. Let's stop getting overexcited and everything else, and let's actually deal with the goalkeeper and the defence, which is the biggest problem, and it's been highlighted as the biggest problem for the last 4 years. Everyone told me I'm stupid and I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm a little leprechaun, and now everyone's listening to me moaning about that defence. So let's actually just get that done first before we actually go into other areas, and let's stop just creating more and more problems for ourselves, please. It's actually unbearable.
Sounds like Dave is telling us to book a vacation to the beach or something like that to relax. So, Philip, any recommendations? Lanzarote, Montauk?
Montauk and Lanzarote.
Lanzarote. But look, we all seem to forget about Papa Sarr. We've all talked about Basuma, we've talked about Skippy, but we haven't mentioned Papa Sarr. Now, is he a player that could play in that cam role? Is he a player? He's young enough.
I think he's deeper, Dermot. I think he plays much deeper, again, to get the best out of him. I think he's similar to, not sure if he's even Basuma, where he could play like in that 6, where he could play deeper, but I do feel like he can pick up the ball and be press resistant, but also spray the passes. If anything, his best attribute is the fact that I think Papa Sarr, for a 19-year-old, can really strike a ball. I mean, the guy has no problem like hitting it for like from 40 yards, you know, and taking a crack at the keeper. I think that's what's kind of funny about him. He really rates himself, I think, when he's having a strike at it. And he also has good passing range from what we can tell. And he seems to be a very technically skilled player, good ball carrier. I think he plays as a number 8 or maybe a number 6, to be honest.
But Davey's right. We need to start looking at the areas where we need to build, not make more problems for ourselves.
After the back and work forward, that's the best way.
Yeah, it was always said the likes of George Graham's side, the great Liverpool sides, the great Alex Ferguson sides, even the Aberdeen side under Alex Ferguson, always started with a strong defence, a strong goalkeeper, strong defence, and you always work forward. With Tottenham, we'll start forward and we'll work backwards, which doesn't work.
You know, there's 2 numbers need to be put on Ange's notice board when he walks into that office on the first day. 63.
Yeah.
The number of goals we conceded in the league this season, which is criminal, absolutely criminal.
And you look at that, Philip, and guys, half the goals we conceded were off our own making. They weren't of skillful players of the opposition or a good build-up to the opposition. They were off our own making.
Some of them
Dyer,
were.
for example.
Some of them were good.
Yeah,
too many mistakes.
Liverpool. You look at the Liverpool goal we conceded, Dyer. You look at how many mistakes Højbjerg made. And look, I'm a big Højbjerg fan, but he did make a few mistakes that led to goals. Half them were our own making. So we need to concentrate on where we need to concentrate, and that's the defence.
That's why the Laporte news is great news if we can get him in. And the Raya news as well.
And like the thing is, we don't need any Sky Sports pundit to come out and tell us to concentrate on the areas first before we all follow suit, because that tends to be what happens. We even don't need Einstein to re-erect himself and come back and say, look, let's just concentrate on the back line and the goalkeeper. You don't need any of that. You just need common sense to prevail. So let's just let common sense prevail, and let's actually start working on areas that need to be improved rather than actually creating more problems and more headaches. Please.
Mm-hmm.
Only Tottenham could have a player in the back line whose name reflects his performances every week.
That is so true.
Let's talk about a certain job for the likes of maybe ENIC this summer. And I mean, it almost sounds cliche to say it, because how often do we say this? Is this the biggest job they have on their hands? Is this the biggest transfer window? But let's maybe entertain it still. There could be an argument that it is, actually, because it's in a bigger mess, as some people have alluded to, than it ever has been in previous years, right? Where a lot of problems that sort of have gone maybe unfixed or maybe kind of ignored, right, have continued to sort of fester and sort of kind of, ferment. And then they've grown into bigger problems and are now actually almost seemingly impossible to fix in one window. It feels like there's so many different things that we have to go after now at Spurs that it actually could be one of the biggest summer windows and future windows they have ahead of them. So maybe I'll start with yourself there, Philip. What do you think? And this is a great question, I think, from Dave, by the way.
It is excellent. Now, yeah, okay. I think we've got a manager coming in to manage the club now who is unproven at this level, right? So we kind of don't know what to expect. Now, we got Mourinho come in, right? Mourinho, proven winner, wins trophies everywhere. We thought he'll be able to fix it. He'll do it. He'll do the tricks. We might have taken our eye off the ball. That's proven to be a mistake. He didn't fix it. The Garden Gnome didn't fix it either. And then Conte certainly didn't fix it. So the problems at the defence have got worse over the years by maybe us placing too much reliance in the managers in place, thinking they were geniuses elsewhere, but they didn't turn out to be geniuses at Tottenham. So that's why this is a huge post window for Tottenham. Levy has to get it right here with the transfers. And I'm hoping that whatever agreement Angie has got coming in here, that he has got, now I'm not going to say total control, but he's got an element of control that he can decide who comes in and who doesn't. Like if Levy presents to the player, he can say to him, no, I don't want him, and go on and get someone he does. Because that we cannot go through another 2 seasons like we've had in the last 2, really. Not so much the one before that, but last season. And I have great faith in this guy. I've read up a lot about him. I've seen what he's done at other clubs. 2 years ago, Celtic fans were up in arms. Who the hell is this guy coming in? Now they're crying in their beer because he's left them. So are we going to be in the same position in 2 years if he gets poached by somebody bigger than us? Let's hope we are, because if that's the case, trophies in the bag at that stage. So, but this is huge this summer. It really is huge.
I have no problem crying into any mythos or any beer of any kind, Philip. So, get him in here. Dermatron, what are we thinking on this job that ENIC have ahead of themselves? Do you think it's a cliche question that we're asking here, or is it maybe actually true that it's the biggest job or maybe harder than ever for all the problems that they have ahead of themselves this summer?
I've been saying, like, even for the end of the season, we're at the crossroads of ENIC's tenure. Now, we can either go down 2 roads. We can go down one road and build the side and give Ange what he wants and give him the players he wants and get trophies in, or we can go down the other road. This is the biggest summer transfer window ENIC have ever had. Yeah. And they've had a few before, but this is their last chance, their biggest one. If we don't get this right, this could put us back 4, 5, 6 years back.
Yeah.
Back into the mid-table, fighting for 12th, 13th, 14th place. We have to get it right. Levy has to leave it to the football men to do. He has to take a step back. All right, there's your check. There's your, say 200 million transfer budget. I'm not getting involved, and then let you do it. Let them do their job. If he doesn't get this right, as Philip said, we could be in a more hell of a mess than we are already. And for me, this summer, even January, the 2 windows are the biggest in our history. We have to get it right. ENIC have to get it right. Levy has to get it right. Ange has to be given the power to do what Ange wants. Not what Levy wants, not what Scott Munn wants, not what the tea lady wants, what Ange wants. And if he gets the players in he wants, as Philip said, I mean, we've watched Celtic for the last couple of years, and I'll tell you one thing. Part of me was disappointed he was leaving Celtic, most of me was over the moon he was coming to us, but I've seen how Celtic play if you get the right players in. If we can have that at Tottenham, boy, are we in for one hell of a ride because it's going to be fantastic.
One of the toughest jobs, Dave, they've ever had in front of themselves? I mean, it's a good question, Dave, but at the same time, the reason I kind of bring up the word cliche is because some people might say that, right? Like, oh, come on, like it's always been, a hard job, and they've never addressed it. But I think I'm guessing that's where you're coming from on this question, right? They've never really fixed a lot of these problems, and these problems have all sort of piled up now, and maybe it is actually harder than ever, the job they have in front of them.
Well, look, you've gone from the heights of Champions League football, qualifying for a Champions League final, to not even qualifying for a Europa Conference League, a competition that they made in between being the Champions League final since then to give clubs a better chance. And we still don't have any European football. But Jack, as long as this club continues to band around in Premier League wilderness, which we've been doing for the last 4 years, as long as we keep getting out of cup competitions early rounds with no improvements in certain areas in the squad that are keeping this squad behind, and you're staying in Premier League wilderness, cup wilderness, every window the following season becomes your biggest window. But we're actually at a point now where I agree with Dermot. It's a crossroads. You've had Pochettino, Jose Mourinho, Conte. You ain't going back at that table for quite some time. So now you're in and around someone like Ange, which, like to what Philip said, it's a gamble. You don't know how it's going to pan out. So if it pans out badly, they're in a lot of trouble. And I don't like you're also at a point, Jack, where fans are not accepting it any longer. They're just not accepting it any longer. You see how toxic the atmosphere is. You're seeing all these groups popping up left, right, and centre to try and oust ENIC from this football club. So the fans are no longer accepting it. So if it goes wrong next season, that's it for ENIC as far as I'm concerned. I think most fans will unite and want them out. When you're seeing them starting to appease fans where they've never done before, they've only ever looked at fans as customers. Now they're bringing out the fan advisory board. Now they're bringing out putting some of the heritage back, like the clock. They're talking about bringing the gates back now to appease fans. So when they're appeasing fans, you know that they're under serious trouble. When you've got the supporters trust on their ass every single window, you know they're in trouble. And then whatever representatives get picked from the trust or from the YouTube community or whatever to represent the fans' voices on Sky Sports or Talk Sport, it's being highlighted there as well. So under all angles, they're under scrutiny and pressure to deliver because of the way things have gone the last 4 years. But not only that, Jack. For instance, let's go through the squad and some of the wages. Ronald McDombele, 200k a week, no resale value, talking about ripping up his contract. Mr. Hot Sauce, Ivan Perisic, 178k a week. Where's he going to fit in the Ange Postecoglou team? Hugo Lloris, 100k a week, no resale value. Dyer, 85k a week, no resale value. Lo Celso, 70k a week, maybe get a small fee. Sanchez, 65k a week, very little resale value. Winks, 50k a week, very little resale value. So they've got a lot of players on high wages that they need to offload that they might not actually recoup any money for. So then where does the transfer money come from to boost up the kitty? Because you've also got to remember, they put in 150 million last year. Are they going to double down on that and do it again this year when it's needed? Time will tell. But you ain't getting much money for these players to add to that transfer kitty. So they had to bring in someone like Ange here, who will bring a few academy players through to bolster the squad. I think that's what the planning and the thinking is behind it. So again, that's another gamble. Then you've got a defence which is the worst in the club's history that needs major surgery. And so you've got to repair that. And if they don't repair that adequately, that's only going to send Tottenham Hotspur further down the table. And then even if you listen to what Daniel Levy said last year, once he put the 150k in, he said, the delivery of a world-class home was always a key building block in driving diversified revenues to enable us to invest in teams and support our ambitions. Additional capital from ENIC will enable further investment in the club at an important time. So if it was an important time for them last year, well, then this time's even more important and one of the most important with their history purely because of the noise and the scrutiny and the pressure all around them. And the squad is in a place where they're going to have to find more money to put in to fund this rebuild because they ain't getting it from player sales.
I was going to say,
nor should we have to sell our best players to fund it either, because that's not improvement. That's stagnating. That's selling your best players just to stay afloat. No, can't done. Go and find the money.
No, you're spot on with that part. The other thing I think where you kind of alluded to was the whole attention that they've already had on themselves, maybe more so than ever, right? They're having people from the trust or various sort of social media personas and people coming on and talking about the likes of ENIC. I mean, I've never seen Daniel Levy and more thumbnails on Talk Sport in my life, really, to be honest. And he's really been under more attention and more scrutiny. And just like I said, more attention, really, than ever before. You see kind of major sort of YouTubers, media outlets, etc., that can talk about the biggest of news, talk about whatever they think might grab the most people's attention. And let's be honest, more so than ever, actually, they are looking at Spurs and looking at ENIC and looking at the likes of Daniel Levy and talking about him and making it just sort of about what is maybe going wrong at Spurs. You know, how has it got to this sort of position where maybe they've stagnated or plateaued or even free fallen, like some people might believe. Whatever it is the case, they have been much more, I think, in the limelight, in a bad sort of limelight, than maybe ever before. And they're maybe the spotlight is the right word for it, right? And I think what's going to happen is if Daniel Levy, like you're saying, makes wrong moves this summer, he's going to be under even more scrutiny, even under more attention. It's not going to go away. They're actually probably just waiting for him to make even more mistakes, for him actually to kind of, again, you know, get something wrong in the summer window. And then Talk Sport will open up, you know, the phone lines, and the likes of Sky Sports will, you know, get up the clips and etc. Because it does seem like maybe they are under more attention than ever before. And like you said, he can't use the excuses that he's done in the past where he said, oh, we need to sell players in order to fix some of the, you know, the issues that we have, you know, with the squad. Can't do that anymore because the squad's problems are far too great that you are going to have to just dip into whatever it is, maybe an emergency fund. Hopefully there is an emergency fund of some kind that they have there. That just means you're going to take a huge hit. You're going to take some, you know, money out of your own coffers, or take some money out of just the club or out of the company itself and bring it into, you know, the team. And like they did with the 150 million, they might have to do it again just to sort of fix all the problems that they kicked down the road from previous years.
I mean, also look at it though, just quickly, you know, you look at every decision that has to be made. The decision on goalkeepers, centre-backs, full-backs, even appointing Ange, the director of football, players out, how you deal with that, where you find the money. Every decision they make, it's under more pressure than years gone by, purely because they have less scope for it to go wrong than years gone by. So that for me makes it even more important than ever.
I mean, you look at it, it's the teams around us we need to keep up with as well. I mean, the team around us, they're going to be spending big this summer. I know some of them have state ownership, which is another conversation and another podcast, probably completely. But if you look, Liverpool are going to look to go big this year. Arsenal, Chelsea, Newcastle, Manchester United, Manchester City, they're all going to go big. If we have any hope of being in and around the Champions League places for next season, we have to match them. We have to go big. This softly approach, or this cautious approach of, well, let's balance the books. And yeah, it's done us well so far, but it hasn't done us well because we just get the top four and that's it. How many times have we got to a place where we know an extra 100 million or 120 million get us over that line to push us to the next level? We never have done. But the likes of Newcastle and Manchester United, Man City, Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, you look at even West Ham this year. All right, crap in the league, but they've won a European trophy. A trophy we laughed at because they went big in the summer. We've got to do this. We can't keep doing the softly approach. We have to go big, and we have to go big now. If not, we're going to be left behind. And this accountant way of working does not work in modern football. It may have done in the years gone by, and probably Philip would tell me, probably back in the 60s and 70s, it worked then. It doesn't work now. We need to go toe-to-toe with these guys if we want to be one of the big boys.
Spurs were always a tight club, even back in the 60s and 70s that I remember. You know, they were always had this reputation of not paying big transfer fees. You know, okay, Jimmy Greaves is maybe an exception, the first £100,000 minus £1 player, you know. But one thing that I often noticed with Spurs in the 70s, when they sold on a player, we rarely got a decent transfer fee for them. Like Pat Jennings went to the Gooners for nothing. Other players left for pittance. We seem to be glad to get rid of some of the players then, which is probably the same way we're feeling now with some of them. But as Dave rightly said, we're not going to get incoming transfer fees on a lot of these players. We're going to get
timing is everything too. That is true. Timing is everything.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I mean, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Philip, I interrupted you.
Here also, you've got to take into consideration what's going on in Manchester United, because that could have a definite effect on what the future of Tottenham Hotspur is. If an underbidder from Man United doesn't get them, are they going to move on to us? And if they do, are ENIC aware of this? And are they going to hold back spending money if they can? Somebody else could be spending it in 2 months' time. Do you know where I'm coming from there? It's a catch-22 situation really for them.
Yeah,
but they're still going to leave us behind, though. You know, we cannot be caught napping. We have a chance now to build on something. We can't be caught napping, and it's the same excuse every window. The 3 windows we didn't buy anyone. Oh, the money's for the stadium, or the money's for the new stadium. But don't worry, the transfer money's been ring fenced. We didn't spend any of it. We were caught napping then, and we're going to be caught napping now.
The reason, the reason why I refuse to enter these conversations about selling on some of our best players because they've got resale value. The reason why I refuse to enter them is because you're talking like people are saying, "Oh, well, we'll do that, and we'll, then we can go and improve the defense." But then you're not you're going to leave yourself with problem areas in the position that you've sold that player, but also, it's man-made by this club that we're in that position in the first place, because they could have went and signed someone in January which I don't believe, but according to reports, Dyer was injured and they knew he was injured. So they didn't do it then. And they said, we'll push it down the road for the summer and we'll bring in 2 centre-backs. So it's been man-made for them, and they've put us in a position where you might have to sell your best players to fund this. And I will not accept that. I will not, because if they would have just acted before and they would have acted sooner when it actually needed to be done, you wouldn't put yourself in that position. So I'm no longer accepting selling your best players to rejuvenate the squad. Plus, building the stadium, all this other additional revenue and everything else. That was supposed to stop us having to do that, selling our best players to fund rebuilding the squad and everything else. So I'm at the point where I no longer accept it. From this board, from this ownership, you find the money and you fix the problems that you've created. I'm not selling our best assets to do it. I refuse to enter them conversations.
I think that's the mentality of other clubs, Dave. I think that's the mentality of most of the top 6 clubs. So I was actually going to ask you, Philip, when I was, interrupted you earlier, but I was going to ask you, do you feel like the top 6 has been threatened by the likes of Newcastle, Brentford, Brighton, all these teams that have sort of come in and around the top 6 now? Do you feel like the Chelseas, the Man Uniteds of the world, they're all going to be dipping into that sort of emergency fund, and they're going to have that mentality Dave's talking about?
Well, I mean, look at Chelsea, for example. I mean, we think we had a bad season. Look what they've finished 14 points behind us, but there's barely a word about it. They've got unlimited funds. That Bowley guy has more money than sense. He'll just buy any player that he thinks comes on the market. Newcastle, well, we all know where their money comes from, and none of us really like it, but they're there and have to be taken as a serious threat. They are going to go big in the next couple of years. They'll be pushing City for the top spot very soon.
Yeah, they'll replace somebody.
With the likes of Brentford, probably punched above their weight. Now, that was down Brighton, but that was down to shrewd transfer business, buying in players that we didn't really even know were on the market, getting them at good money, and now going to sell them on at huge profits, which is very, very good, But Dave, just to go back to your comment about selling your best players, right? I think we'd all be happy if we sold our worst players, just to get them off the payroll so we can bring in fresh blood. So I'm not too concerned what we get for the likes of Dyer and Sanchez, as long as they go.
Yeah,
I think that's the way it is. We're not going to sell Harry Kane or Heung-min Son or anybody like that, because we shouldn't have to.
No, but the thing is, what annoys me there is conversations out there happening like that, and it just shouldn't. We were told last January, 2 centre-backs this summer, regardless of selling players. But I also seen an article today that was put out by Football London. It triggered me. It's like Tottenham's problem in this transfer window. You have to get players out before you bring players in. And it's like, oh, holy Jesus Christ. How many times do I have to hear this same absolute BS bullshit excuses? At some stage, act like a big club. Bring your targets in. Turn around to Moonhead, Davies, Sanchez, people like that, and go, do you know what, guys? You've got until the end of the deadline day to instruct your agent to find you a new club. And if you don't, a minute after the deadline window closes, because you're not in a hurry because of your high wages, like I spoke about, Dyer 80k, Davies 85k, Sanchez 69k, because you're not in a hurry to move, as soon as that window's closed, then we'll rip your contract up and we'll leave you absolutely screwed. You watch. You bloody watch how quick. They'll be like Dynamo the Magician. You won't even see how quick they get a new football club. You watch. And this is the problem. We're too friendly. Oh, well, we'll just wait to see if people want to leave the club. What are we waiting on? I've been waiting on these guys to carry the can from Toby and Jan Vertonghen for 4 fucking years. How much longer do they want me to wait? I'm not waiting any longer. And neither should we be putting them in a position where they can dawdle around and take as long as they want. You accelerate the process by saying, no longer acceptable, new guys are here. Oh, it looks like there's no football for you. Fuck off.
The only thing is tearing of a contract, though, David, there has to be agreement. You can't just tear up a contract on a one-sided basis. You have to have agreement, or else they'll be suing you for breach of contract. So that's got to be done carefully. But the agent should be told, listen, there's no future for your client at this club. Do him a favor, do yourself a favor, get him out of here. But tearing up the contract has to be a mutual decision, you know.
Look, for me, ENIC and Levy's transfer policy for the last 20 odd years is, look, I've been in construction all my life. It's like digging a foundation and building the house without any concrete in. Your house is not going to be stable. That has been ENIC and Levy's transfer policy. The house is crumbling around them, and they don't know how to build the house. You do it properly. You dig your foundations. You put your concrete in. You put your blocks in. You put your beams in. Your first stage is done. You've got a solid base to work off. Then that's how other clubs do it. ENIC, let's dig the foundations. I tell you what, let's build a house without any concrete in, and your foundations are crumbling. That's their policy. Has been.
Daniel
Just on what Philip was saying about you need two sides to mutually terminate the contract because it's a breach of contract. They breached their contract the day they fucking signed it. They refused to perform since then. So I'd argue we could bring them to court for breach of contract.
It's hard to prove that. Very hard to prove that.
Oh, we can. Dyer Liverpool for one. There's a breach of contract.
Yeah, just all you've got to do is get a picture of Dyer headering the ball into Mo Salah's path in front of the court of law. Guilty.
I'm not disagreeing with you. But I think in the court of law, you got some boy with a wig on and say, "What the fuck are they doing here?" You know, it's trying to get rid of him who's made a bad back pass.
Just make sure the judge is not an Arsenal fan or a Chelsea fan.
These might as well ask these boys though. Do you feel like we were talking about the summer, right, and how it is the biggest job ever for the likes of ENIC and Levy? But could they be helped out by giving the likes of an Ange Postecoglou more power than they have previous managers? Philip, would that be the right move?
Well, you'd hope so. Like we talked about earlier about getting control over transfers, who comes in, who goes out, whatever. You'd hope he would. I mean, let's face it. I don't think any of us would object to having an Ajax situation at Tottenham. It really would. And I'm just looking back here. You see that the academy manager, what's his name, Dean Rastrick, supposedly resigned yesterday. Now, I'm very suspicious when a new manager comes in and some of the other management teams suddenly move out. There's no such thing as a coincidence. So I think that is Postecoglou's first act in wielding the sword onto things he doesn't see right at the club. Now, I'm not saying Dean Rastrick hasn't done a great job. He won 2 trophies this season, but he also got the under-21s relegated. So, you know, it's not all good. So I'm just wondering if the new regime has started already with that sacking or resignation or whatever it is. And I'll be very interested to see now what the backroom team is coming in. Now,
so you're kind of saying, is that a sign that Ange has that type of power that you're saying? Like he's already kind of...
more power. I think he's been given more power. And I think he would only have come to the club. Football managers have their own little, say, group chats, I'm sure. He knows exactly what to expect coming to Tottenham. He'll know from listening to Mourinho and to Conte and to Nuno what's been going on here. And he will say, right, I'm not getting caught up in that. So he will have made his demands. And I think at this stage, because the other candidates were dropping by like flies, Levy may well have acceded to this. And the fact that Scott Munn is coming in, it's strange that the two of them, Scott Munn and Postecoglou, are starting on the same day, officially starting on the same day, the 1st of July. So maybe that's the first day of the rest of our lives here, that Levy now takes a back seat, and the two boys that might be able to do something for the club, let you know, to vent their own ideas without interruption and without interference. So that's my hope.
Dermotron? Does he have that power?
Yeah, I think he will. I use the example is you look at other clubs over the years. You look at the great Man United sides or the great Liverpool sides, or you look at Sir Matt Busby in the 50s and 60s. He had control over the club. Look at Alex Ferguson. He ran Man United from top to bottom. You know, he ran the club in his image. Bill Shankly, managers after Bill Shankly left, ran Liverpool in their image. Tottenham had it under Bill Nick, ran the club under his image. So I think, and Keith Berkshire did the same. So I think we're going to see a club built in Angie's vision, in image. And I think it's about time. Mourinho wasn't given that chance. Conte wasn't given the chance. The Garden Gnome he couldn't manage himself out of a paper bag if you give him one. All the other managers haven't. So this could be a complete change in landscape for Tottenham Hotspur Football Club.
I feel like he is going to... This might sound absolutely ludicrous to some people, but I feel like Jose Mourinho and Antonio Conte were probably so intimidating to the likes of Daniel Levy that he was perhaps more reluctant, and maybe in a silly way, more reluctant to give them actually the power that maybe he would give other managers right away, because he knew that these guys are kind of volatile. He knew that they can leave in a moment's notice, and if things aren't going their way, they might just abandon the project all of a sudden. So why get into sort of bed with them, right, in the first place, if you can't really trust them? Or it's maybe potentially, even though Ange Postecoglou could be a yes man, a lot of the big passionate Ange fans have said constantly in the comments, he's not a yes man, I promise you. He gets what he wants, and he doesn't bow down to anybody, no matter sort of the status or whatever. And he's an honest, straightforward guy. And I'm going to take that to heart here with sort of what I'm about to say is that maybe he's come across better than Jose or Antonio Conte have with Daniel Levy. That has nothing to do with Jose or Conte. That probably has more to do with Daniel Levy and who he might prefer as sort of managers and people and characters, etc. But it could be the fact that I think Daniel Levy likes these sort of bravitas type of, characters, these very confident guys. And I think Postecoglou is one of them. But maybe he just trusts Postecoglou just slightly more than he actually originally ever did the likes of a Jose or an Antonio Conte. And that would be the maybe sign that if he were to build his own Ajax in his own image, or his own sort of club in his own in his own image, from the youth team all the way to the first team, he would need to have that sort of extra trust from the get-go from Daniel Levy. Because we've even heard from that one scout that did that Talk Sport interview that Pochettino wasn't even given any trust until basically his first year, and how he did. And I'm worried that that could still be the case. Maybe Daniel Levy doesn't really give him the keys to the palace until he sees how he does in his first year. But the fact that he was given a 4-year contract does suggest that he might be more convinced by Postecoglou than he has been by other managers. Not saying that that's, again, any slight on other managers. It's just how Levy seems to see it. And there could be some hope that maybe if he were to give up any power or retention, not saying that he is going to be, but it could be because he is more impressed by what Postecoglou is able to offer, just sort of from top to bottom, and how he can run sort of the football club in his image. So that's my only, cue to maybe think that he could actually give more power.
Look, if Postecoglou wants to survive, longer than a Jose Mourinho, a Conte, a Nuno, and he wants a similar spell to Poch, then he's got to do what Pochettino done. The answer is simple. Stop playing with players that have proven costly for Tottenham, that have proven they can't keep up with the demands of professional footballer. Sanchez, Dyer, Davies, Sessegnon, people like that. Get them gone. What do they offer? Absolutely nothing. And even if the club don't bring in anyone, start bringing up some of the academy players. We were told that was one of the reasons why he was hired, because he understands the importance of the link between the academy and the first team. So we're at the point, if Daniel Levy doesn't want to fucking go and sign players, which he makes a rod off his own back if he doesn't, well then, if I was Postecoglou, I'd double down, I'd stick to my guns, and I'd start bringing up some kids and putting them out there, whether he likes it or not. Because that's the only way you're going to survive that tenure. You look at it. Just look back. Dyer, Sanchez, Davies, they all last for about 6 months under a manager. They can give it their all for 6 months. but they cannot do it for a whole season. And that has been proven time and time and time again. And I don't even want to hear about, let's, keep them around as backup and they can come in here or there. Okay, grand. If you want them to cost you games and all momentum that the current first 11 is built up, no problem. Let's do that. But that's not what I want anymore. I don't think that's what anyone wants out there anymore. These guys have proven time and time again they're not good enough. They will perform for 6 months, then stop performing, and then they start complaining about management. They'll start complaining about the training sessions. Oh, he's working us too hard. Then they'll start going to Daniel Levy, and that's where the problems start coming in. So if he wants to survive beyond all the rest of the managers over the last few years, you get rid of these guys. It's that simple. Ryan Mason, Dyer was out the team as soon as Mason came in. The back line improved, and it just goes to show the proof is in the pudding. So for me, at all costs, do not break your principles of hard work, constantly moving, and always involved. If you break them to allow a Dyer or Sanchez and people like that to stay around, come in, you're broken and you're not.
Don't break your standards. Don't break your principles. Don't break
When them guys plays, results take a downturn. You go out of the cups early, and then it puts pressure on the first 11 and puts even more pressure on the manager. And then what happens is the noise gets louder. He's sacked. So he just cannot persist with these guys at all costs, even if it's academy players. Bring them up and fuck these guys off.
But one thing he's done, David, every club he's been at and every country he's managed, he's gone in there and he's absolutely, I won't say gutted the team, but he's got rid of Ed Wood immediately. Look what he did with Celtic. Celtic were a shambles 2 years ago. By Christmas, he had them winning the league almost. So, he's not going to do it that quick at Tottenham. But this guy will not suffer fools gladly. He'll get rid of them. And that's a great thing for us.
Because the thing is, we're at a similar time where we were with Pochettino. Before Pochettino, you had Sherwood, you had AVB, and you had a couple of other managers like that, right? It wasn't looking any better. There were moans and grumblings in the fan base and, calls for him to be sacked. He said, okay, out with Adebayor, in with Kane, out with Sigurdsson and Holtby and people like that, in with Bentaleb, Mason and people like that. And look what it went on to do for Tottenham Hotspur. Look what it sent us into a new era. It sent us to a Champions League final, challenging for cups, challenging for the league title. Although we never got over the line, I just want to be back in and around, because once you're back in and around, all you need is that bit of luck and it can go your way, and all of a sudden you've lifted a trophy. So it's just getting it back in and around and back there. And in order to do that, Postecoglou has to do what Poch done, but Postecoglou has to do it from the very beginning of the season, not 10, 15 games in like Poch did. It nearly cost him his job. Postecoglou has to do it from the very off.
Yeah.
Go on, Philip.
No, I'm just saying he will. He's going to hit. This guy's going to hit the ground running because he knows that's the only way to do it. There's no honeymoon period here. He's straight into the, if you get it right or get divorced situation.
I saw a video of him doing a pre-match talk before Australia game.
Yeah.
And I watched it. We were going live. Even pumped me up. I mean, this man can do a pre-match talk. I mean, that Celtic players who won through a war for him. And you're right, Dave. You say the likes of Davis, Dyer, Sanchez. They were for 6 months. That's all they can do, because they all got tiny brains and they can't cope with too much information. So it has to be spoon-fed for them. Simple. You pass the ball to Romero and you stay there. They can't do anything less. So we have to get rid of them. Rip up contracts, sack them, do something, because we cannot start next season with a Dyer, Sanchez, Davis in the back three, where we know there's going to be mistakes. And if that happens, either Dave's going to go bald, it would turn Jack grey, and me and Philip will probably age by 20 years. So please, whatever you do, don't start that. Just start with new defenders and give us a bit of peace.
Yeah. I think it's the opposite, Dermot. I think it's actually going to make you guys younger, because, it's going to cause you guys, so much, sweating and stress and anxiety. You're going to be fit and, looking great again, all of a sudden, because of the stress that Spurs is causing you. What I would say, too, though, is if Ange is going to be ruthless, I mean, he might as well be ruthless while he's over in Perth and in Australia, because then he can leave some of these Spurs players as far away from London as possible and as far away from Tottenham as possible, and leave them behind there in the A-League. That would be nice.
Leave them a rowing boat and say, that's your way back to London, lads.
Exactly. Yeah. Everybody.
That's what I would do.
Good luck swimming back from Australia, let alone Belgium.
fly them over, set them up with some canoes along the Gold Coast, find your way back to London, lads. Good luck. That's what I would do. And Dermo, I won't go bald. I'll go down to the church and I'll pray for forgiveness for whatever I've done in my past life to deserve this.
Exactly. We mentioned the academy a few times, lads, and I just wanted to get sort of some quick answers from it. Maybe I'll start with yourself, Philip, because you did mention, right, the sacking, or not
Yeah,
the sacking, I think the departure, should I say, of a certain sort of youth or youth staff member. And what do you think of, this question of the fact that maybe Spurs are actually investing more in the academy, which means bigger wages, but some people were against this because they think that takes the hunger and stuff away from some of the players. Where do you stand on that?
But then what happens if you don't pay some of these stalwarts decent money? They're going to go to Man City or Arsenal or United. Some of them will pay them. And the fact that Rastrick guy has been with the club for 10 or 12 years and he's going so soon after Postecoglou's coming in, it seems to me there's a bit of a shake-up coming in the youth department. Like, I know we have Jermaine Defoe there and Yaya Toure looking after things down there as well, So I think Postecoglou's been also given a mission, is to bring more players through from the youth teams into the first team position. Like, I know Conte had young lads training with the teams. He might have had the odd one on the bench, but those two fellas that came on in the last 5 minutes for Leeds, one of the Elliot guy and
Cray twins, one of the Cray twins,
one of the twins. Yeah, that's the first time we've really seen that being pushed into action, and that was Ryan Mason's doing. So I think what we're going to see now is we're going to see the likes of that Will Lancashire. What do you call him? There's another young lad they bought as well.
Sunset Bell.
Yeah, him. Yeah, you're going to see the likes of him getting a lot more involvement with the team, going away with the first team, getting experience at that level, and that will save us money. It's not about paying extra wages to them. If it saves you 50 million in the transfer fee later on, that's saving money. Isn't it worth to speculate to accumulate? So I think the youth team situation now, if I was in the youth team at Tottenham now, I'd be rubbing my hands and right, lads, if I do something good here, I'm on the way up.
Yeah.
It's interesting, though, that they brought in a guy like Juden Sunset-Bell, because that was more, they were saying, kind of a reflection of what Paratici was doing to the department, which was kind of bringing in more higher profile, sort of kind of young kids. I guess I don't know much about, of course, the various other teams, in the youth leagues and the youth development, but supposedly he's one of the kind of bigger, higher profile players of his age group that a lot of people are kind of competing for. And he himself was wanting a big move to an academy where he felt like he could break through maybe to that first team eventually. But what these guys asked for is bigger wages, than most academy players. They might already be, more kind of incentivized by some of the things that the modern footballers are, with just sort of contracts and sort of guarantees and all these things, which I don't blame them. And for the most part, it's guaranteeing your future, guaranteeing, you have the right pathway and all these sort of things. But I think what ended up happening was there's a bit of divide, if I'm not mistaken, between sort of what Paratici was doing by injecting all this money into the academy, meant the academy could bring in more higher profile players, but also they could then offer contracts to guys that, were incentivizing them to stay at Spurs and, stay loyal to us instead of going elsewhere. And there's this worry that while you're getting better players, potentially, you're also, though, maybe introducing some of these younger guys to the financial incentives of the game a bit too early, and you might be taking away a bit of that hunger or that energy.
Yeah,
I don't know what your guys' thoughts are.
Very true.
So, like, what you're alluding to there, Jack, is the scout that Paratici bought in for emerging talent signed Sunset Bell. But the guy that was in place by Dean Rastrick, who only took over from John McDermott because he left to go to the FA, that's why he was promoted into that role. He was the one that brought in Will Lancashire. But also Paratici changed the model, where it was the model beforehand that was implemented by like John McDermott and stuff like that the club abided by for years, was there's a wage structure and they don't break it because they want to keep them hungry. But it also then allowed Daniel Levy to offer them low wages in the first team and keep the wages low in the first team. But Paratici said, if you want to get your academy up to levels of other European clubs around and you want to have the quality in the academy, you have to break that wage structure and you have to start offering some of these players bigger wages and incentives to come in here. So that's where the disconnect in and around the academy has come from, where it's been two different ideas. The club sort of want to continue with John McDermott, but then Paratici wanted to change it and go with his. So there's a big debate on who's right, who's wrong. It'd be fascinating in the comments for people to let us know. Do you go with John McDermott's one, or do you go with Paratici's
Thank you,
one?
Dave.
So please do let us know on that. And that's where the confusion has come in the academy over the last few years. But Jack, we need to get...
Who do you agree with, McDermott or Paratici, if I were to press you, Dave?
I'm one of them. I agree with McDermott, if you want me to be brutally honest. You know, I'm of the old school, you know, where you earn your money. You come in, you concentrate, be the best you very can, and then when you get into the first team, that's where the incentives are. But until then, you know, if you want young, hungry players and stuff like that without any inflated egos, but also the benefit towards the player as well, that he has to work for it. It's not just given to him, because if you give them to young players, and inevitably a lot of the work ethic tends to drop off because they've already thought they've made it. They think it's going to last forever, and it doesn't. So for me, I prefer John McDermott's model. But look, we have to sort the pathway out from the academy into the first team. It has to be done. Like, we're not a club that's going into every transfer market willing to spend 200 million just to compete, right? It's never going to happen at Tottenham under ENIC. So we actually need to bridge that gap. And the way by doing that, Jack, is the academy. And at least if we don't use them, we can sell them on elsewhere, like Ajax do, to take profit in and boost the transfer keys. But also, you're saving money by promoting players into the first team, where you're not paying the likes of Sanchez 67 grand a week just to field 20 games across a season, you know? So you eliminate that as well. So you save money, and then that way, whatever money you do have, you're actually only really focusing on one set position, and you can go and get the best in class for that money. Rather than what we're seeing now, where we have so much to fill, no one's looking at the academy. So you're making your money spread around 11 positions, and it's not doable. So in order to stop that, and in order to start competing and bridge the gap on the top spending clubs, but also, you know, we have to start pushing players from that academy into the first team that Tottenham feel are good enough, because we've missed out in years gone by with other players who have gone off elsewhere that Tottenham, and most Tottenham fans would say, yeah, I'd have him in my squad right now. And look, something they should have done. They should have done this under Pochettino, Jack, but they missed the poll. So why not under Ange Postecoglou set up something like what Ajax has? Set your club from top to bottom, playing the one way, so that players coming through, they're training in that system, in that formation, so they have every chance of getting into the first team when that opportunity comes around, if they're good enough. You look at some of the best clubs around the world; they're built off attacking philosophies. They're not built off a Jose Mourinho philosophy, a Conte philosophy. You look at Barcelona, built off your Cruyff's vision. Ajax, built off something similar to Cruyff as well. United, everything they done for a good period of time embodied Sir Alex Ferguson. Arsenal, a lot of their academy and the way they train is still shaped off what Arsene Wenger done, you know? And we need something like that put in place at Tottenham Hotspur. From top to bottom, everyone plays the same way. And for me, why not do it under Ange Postecoglou? His principles are in effect what embodies this club. So you look at our motto, right? It's to dare is to do. You look at Ange's key principles. Work hard every day. Every day is an excuse to get better. No standing still. You're always involved. Positive mentality. Always looking to pass forward. All based on a fast attacking style of play. And it's the Tottenham way. Many people mention the push and run side, Arthur Rowe, which, you know, Bill Nick was built off that as well when he came in and stuff like that. And if you want to get back to that, you've got to start implementing the philosophy right throughout the academy. And why not do it off a guy like this? We've missed it under Pochettino. You've given the guy a 4-year contract. Let's start putting that in place. But like Levy also said, you know, that Ange has a strong track record of developing players and that he understands the importance of the link between the academy and the first team. So let's go into some of the players, Jack. We spoke about this before at Tottenham Hotspur under Paratici. A lot of the recruitment was 25 or under. And you've got players, you know, who can become really top players with just a bit of coaching. Bentancur, Romero, Kulu if we re-sign Porro, Basuma, Emerson. Then you go younger again. You know, players that have a bright future, Sarr, Gill, Spence. Some people will say Skip, not me. Then you look at the academy products, Devine, White, Scarlett, Parrott, Dorrington, Devine, Tyrese Hall, Kiramento, Mikey Moore, Abbott. You know, you've got Herbie James, who we signed from the City Academy. You've got Sunsup Bell. You've got Will Lancashire, people like that, you know, that you've signed from other academies. Oliver Iro. You've got a lot of players there with a lot of potential. So, you know, why not get the under-21s playing very similar to what Ange plays so that Ange can get a good look at them? And it will save us money in the future. If your academy are playing the same style of football as the first team, you bridge that gap. The academy then can start doing long-term planning, like a Brentford, like a Brighton, where they constantly go around the world picking up some of the best young players and they bring them in. They develop them. You know, with what I spoke about building it off Ange Postecoglou's principles and stuff like that, you then start to build a brand, right? You know, and then you can start identifying people to fit into that brand rather than what we're doing at the minute, where we're bringing in a manager and trying to adapt our brand to them. And that's not the way a good, successful football club should be. It should be that you have a philosophy and principles right throughout from the first team to the academy. And then, you know, you can start identifying people to come in and help enhance your brand, take it to the next level, rather than what we're doing right now. And then, you know, with the long-term planning, you can look at the academy and you go, right, we've got a guy there that can play right back. We'll bring him up. We don't need to sign anybody. And then that way we can use that money to put into another area and go and get the first in class. So for me, I think it's the right time to start looking at the academy. I think it's wrong not to use, you know, also, sorry, how could I forget the likes of Scarlett and Parrott out on loan, Spence as well, people like them, you know? So what we should be doing is looking to develop these guys, a bit like what Pochettino done with Walker, Rose, players that were bought in for very little money, for Tonga and Ericsson, people like that, and actually form a team and push on for the new era. Man United, when their team won the Youth Cup, Sir Alex Ferguson used a lot of them players and went on to build his foundations at Man United. Why can't we use some of the under-17s or under-18s, or at least have plans for them to going forward to implement into the Tottenham team? Players that actually know the Tottenham way, understand what the fans want and everything else, and use that, because we do have a good crop of players, and use that to build a new era at Tottenham. But not only the new era that Andrew's going to build to bring us forward, but long beyond that as well. And lastly, what I will say is, you've got a lot of players where their parents and their agents are being smart nowadays. And this is what's crucial, that we open up the pathway to the first team. And that's how you attract the best in class, because a lot of players, and I see it more and more regularly now than ever before, they're not going to the likes of a City Academy, a United Academy, a Liverpool Academy. Their parents and their agents are putting them into academies where there's a pathway to the first team, where they can actually get in and have a chance of playing senior football. So for me, why not take advantage of that and say, look, guys, come over here. We've got a pathway.
I hope Daniel Levy didn't hear your comment about keeping them hungry there, because you probably have a soup kitchen outside the training ground for them. Keep the wages down to a minimum, you know.
Look, I sort of agree with you, Dave, on what you said. You alluded to the 51 push and run side, right? That team, Bill Nick came through the youth system, and that the North Fleet Academy, which was known back then, that's how they came through. But you look at the Keith Birkinshaw side, Graham Roberts bought from non-league. Mickey Hazard came through the youth system. Glenn Hoddle came through the youth system. Garth Cooks we bought for very little money. Steve Archibald we bought for very little money. I think the only players that we spent, Tony Galvin bought for very little money. Paul Miller, Chrissy Houghton, I think came through the academy as well. The only money we laid out was probably Ray Clements, who was an established goalkeeper at the time. You look at the teams under Terry Venables, David Howes, who came through the academy. Steve Sedgley was bought for very little money. Gary Marrott was bought for very little money back in the early 80s. And look what he done at Tottenham. Captained us for nearly 10 years. We have done it in the past, from the 60s to the 70s. A lot of players, Bill Nick bought a lot of players through the youth system and brought a lot of young players in. It's been done before in our history. We need to recapture what we did before, because our youth system at the moment is dreadful. It's one of the worst in the Premier League, and that is shocking for a size and for a team and the name of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, who've done it in the past. And you are right. You look at the like Ferguson did at United. You look at the Busby Babes back in the late 50s under Sir Matt Busby. He built 2 young sides from the youth academy. You look at the Liverpool sides under Bill Shankly, young lads all brought together in fighting for one cause. And you got it under Jock Stein up at Celtic as well. Young Scottish lads. Everyone played for Celtic, were born within 5 or 10 miles away from Celtic's ground. It's the same. Pochettino had the same thing when he came into Celtic. He wanted to bring the young Scottish lads into. And the same thing is going to happen at Tottenham. Imagine getting lads in from 5 miles or 10 miles away from Tottenham Hotspur White Hart Lane. A local young lad doing well in the club. Mickey Hazard. Steve Perriman, another example of bringing a youngster through the youth academy. So we've done it before. We can do it again. And I'm
right about the youth system being in a terrible state.
Yeah.
The under-17s and the under-18 teams brought us the first silverware we've had in the club for years. So it ain't all that bad.
No,
the
but
the under-21 relegated, but we have had some success at underage level. You know,
but where it's awful though is that there's no pathway beyond the under 17s, under 18s. They either go under 21s or out on loan, and that's it. That's all you ever see.
But that's going to change now. I think that's going to change.
It has to though, because it's all well and good picking up your first couple of cups in a matter of years, right? But then it's about finding a way for them youngsters to get into the first team eventually. And I don't want anyone.
I agree.
I don't want anyone to mix up what I'm saying. I'm not saying like the likes of Mikey Moore, get him in next year and play him. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about use the likes of Spence, Sarr, Gill, Dorrington, people like that to fill out the first team this year and plot the way for them guys coming up. Get them all into the under-21s next year, form a team around them, and slowly develop that pathway into the first team for them. Because even now, right, you look at it, we're in a position, right, where we have to go and try and fork out for homegrown talent. Now, because of the clubs need them for homegrown quotas, this, that, and the other to meet squad registrations. That's where the English tax is coming in on these players. And we can't even afford to pay a lot of that for some of the best English talents. So the only other way of doing it is by identifying them and getting them into your academy and bringing them through. But also, the fact that we haven't used our academy over the last few years is the reason why the squad is in the mess it's in right now. Because you're constantly changing different regimes. You're constantly changing regimes to suit the manager, which means every player you're bringing in is constantly getting lost up under the next regime, which forms the bloated squad we have, which forms the bloated wages we have, which forms the amount of players we have out on loan we have. And what you're seeing is players walking away from the academy. There's no pathway from what I've done at under 17, under 18 level purely because of these guys. So you need to clear them out and you have to start bringing through academy players. And once you start getting that right, you avoid having backup players like Sanchez on 67 grand a week. You avoid having players like Dyer around on 80 grand a week just to assist the opposition every weekend.
Yeah.
Well, I think we'll leave it there, everybody, on the bonus section, and we'll leave it now to Mr. Philip Brady to plug the likes of THFC Till I Die. Thank you, Philip, for your service today, and thank you for we got you on here finally to have a good chat.
Timing wasn't right the last couple of weeks for various things, but anyway, I'm back now. And hopefully I'll see you in the morning for your fixtures launch tomorrow morning. And then after I finish that, Dermot and myself are doing a similar thing at 11 o'clock on THFC Till I Die. And plus, we'll be putting out a podcast tomorrow night as well, which I'm sure will be heavily dominated by the fixtures as they come out and any transfer news that comes along, hopefully earlier rather than later this window, But I'm not holding my breath, So that's THFC Till I Die. Get over and have a look.
We'll do.
If you hold your breath, if you hold your breath, Philip, you'll end up in an early coffin, my man, waiting on Tottenham transfers.
I know. So what can you do? it's a punishment for supporting this club. You know, nothing comes easy.
True.
Everybody, their link will be pinned in the comments and as also will be in the description down below. Please check them out. Show them some love this summer because they are working very, very hard over there. And also as well, plenty of content to check out and been with us since the beginning as well, these two guys, and plenty over as well over at THFC Till I Die, including Mia, of course, Ellie, and plenty of others as well. So do show them some love. But I think we'll end it there, Dave.
Yeah, we'll end it there. Thanks very much for tuning in and listening, everyone. Thanks very much to Dermot and Philip for the time this afternoon. Hopefully you've enjoyed the conversation. I thought there was some very good talking points in there, but please let us know. Do you prefer John McDermott's academy approach, or do you prefer what Paratici wanted to do? Don't forget, let us know in the comments.
Everybody, smash the like button on the way out, and we will be seeing you. Come on, you Spurs.
Come
You
on,
big
you
Ange, we
Spurs.
trust.
In Ange we trust.